Welcome to In Conversations with Anjana, a talk show where every conversation matters. Today, I'm joined by my dear friend Dhruva Upadhye, who is a law graduate and is a trained Hindustani classical vocalist, and he's going to be giving his insights on his journey as well as the state of Hindustani classical music today. Thank you so much, Dhruva, for joining me today. I know your journey in Hindustani music has been going on for a very long time, and I want to know where it all started.
So it started when I was 8 years old. My mom had put me to the Hindustani classical music class at my guru's place, Srimati Varsha Soni ji. And at that time, I had no clue about what classical music is. In fact, I had no exposure to Hindustani classical music at all. I had never listened to any classical stuff. No one in my family was a connoisseur of classical music. So it just starts with, a parent putting their children to some hobby class. And I think all parents did that, right?
Yeah.
So that is how it initially started. And then I have continued since then. I'm learning classical music under my guru.
So you said your parents put you in class, obviously, and obviously at that age, as you correctly mentioned, we do not know anything about all these hobby classes, nor do we have any exposure. So while going through this journey, as you grow up, you gave exams. What was that one point where you were like, okay, I like this and I want to keep doing this forward?
I can't trace it back to a single point, but maybe let's say 7th or 8th grade, maybe when you have that maturity and when you really know that, I am really liking this and I want to pursue it.
Yeah.
In your initial years, it's just that you're going to class, you're trying to learn something. It is more like a routine, you're trying to form a habit. But after a point, you start liking it. You start developing an attraction, a passion for the art form. So I think maybe 6th grade or 7th grade, when you have that maturity to understand, to appreciate what you're doing, to really grasp what is happening and what you're trying to learn.
Yeah.
And maybe at that point you can say, I realized that, I want to do this, and this has become a very important part of my life.
So after gaining some experience, you were like, okay, this is what I want to go. So you have been learning since the age of 8. What do you think is the most difficult part of training for Hindustani classical music, and especially for the exams that you have to give, or even if you have a performance like that?
So, Hindustani classical music to begin with is difficult. Any classical art form is difficult as compared to maybe folk music or maybe your popular music. This is I don't want to sound very stereotypical, but it is difficult because it has a lot of rules to it.
Yeah.
So maybe what happens while performing classical art forms is that in that passion, in that happiness, you might get carried away and you might transgress the rules of classical music. So it is very difficult to, enjoy the art form, and at the same time, I feel you need to stay in character in the sense that you need to follow all the rules. You cannot go beyond the rules, or you cannot violate the rules or the rules of the rag, rules of the tal. And you need to balance these two things, deriving happiness, deriving joy from the art. And on the other side, also, you need to, perform within those bounds, within those rules.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, obviously, exams are something that are integral part of Hindustani classical music, and you are going to give the last exam, that is Visharad Purna. How was, before that, obviously you have to give the Visharad Pratham. So how was that preparation like? And then finally giving that exam and the, a little bit of happiness and satisfaction that, okay, we are to the last step.
Right. So I think these exams also, they help to boost a lot of your confidence because you have to perform in an exam just the way you perform in a concert or in a performance. So you are held by that standard. Secondly, preparation for exams is rigorous because unlike a concert, here the examiner is a very
Yeah.
is an expert, and he or she are going to ask questions. They are going to correct you if you go
Yeah.
wrong. They are also, there are going to be many follow-up questions. They are going to grill you in the exams. Because they might ask you theoretical questions as well, even in practical exams. So you see, for classical exams, you have written exams as well as you have a practical component. Of course, the practical component is more important because singing
Yeah,
is a
obviously.
practical exercise ultimately. However, in classical arts, you are also expected to have basic knowledge about the theory and the theoretical aspects and the frameworks about it. So you really need to prepare 10th or 12th board exams for these exams. And uh, it is also, after, as you said, after completing the exam, there is a relief that you have, first of all, given
Finish
the exam. And secondly, there is a sense of achievement.
Yes.
That, okay, I have prepared for all these days, for all these years, and now it has led me up to this point where I have given this particular exam, and I feel that sense of achievement and joy.
Yeah.
So,
and you're preparing for Visharat Purna. So how is that preparation going right now for you?
Really good. Right now, I do have time for myself. However, I think once I'll start working, it will be a little difficult to manage both the things together, but I will strive my best. And preparations are going on. I mean, riyaz is something that is a continuous process. It is a very, you have to be very patient with riyaz, and it just keeps going. Like, it is a everyday thing. It is a part of your routine. So you need to be very consistent and very patient with the riyaz for it to give you results.
So when is the Visharat Purna exam in this?
Around November, December.
November. So as you correctly said, you're going to start working, and I had mentioned that you are a law graduate, and law is a field where you have to slog for a lot of hours. So are you going to create a timetable, or how is that going to work out for you? Because you have to manage singing, and then obviously you have a personal life commitments, going to events, family events, and what's not. And then obviously you have your work. So how is that going to plan out for you?
So I can't decide on a routine or a schedule right now because I haven't started working yet. But I think once I start working, I know for sure that I want to dedicate some amount of time from my whole day towards music. Now, that can be, let's say, early morning, because that is when most of the stalwart artists do their riyaz, and that is what they recommend, that you should do riyaz early in the morning.
Yeah.
However, if that is not possible, maybe later during the day. Also, I think this is going to be very recreational for me as well once I start working. So I definitely want to, give it time. Yeah.
So you have grown up learning music, and then obviously you've performed. So do you think music in any way has changed you right from the beginning? Or do you think it has influenced a lot of times, a lot of things in your life?
I think yes, it definitely has an effect on your personality, especially I think classical music. I think with classical music, first of all, you're humbled. Like, you realize that because it's so vast, because it's so endless, because it's a lifelong process of learning, you really you are grounded to the fact that, okay, I can never be the best, or you can always strive to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And there is always so much to learn from so many people, from so many artists. Secondly, on a personality or a personal level, it also influences your overall music taste.
Yeah.
So if you are accustomed, if you are exposed to classical music from a very young age, I believe you may not necessarily like the generic or the popular kind of music.
Yeah.
So I feel that is what I experience when I am also around my friends, that maybe in my college or in my university, whatever is the popular music which people are enjoying, which students do listen to, sometimes I do not enjoy it as much. So classical music does have that influence on your overall music tastes.
So riyaz is something that is very important. So how many hours of practice? Now obviously you have free time. It will change obviously once you start working, but let's say when you are working and then you have some free time in the morning or at night, how many hours should one person dedicate to riyaz?
So I think there's no fixed parameters or fixed amount of time, but I have realized that even if you do it for an hour every day,
Okay.
and if you dedicate that 1 hour, just to riyaz, and if you're focusing on what you're doing, I think that also suffices. Because if you see in classical music concerts, they perform one rag for around, you can perform a rag for 5 minutes also, but if you want to elaborate on the rag, if you want to have an elaborate presentation, it might go up to 30 minutes to 1 hour. So let's say in your riyaz also you are doing that one rag for an hour. That means you are, giving it a lot of time. You are giving it sufficient time to practice. So I think an hour, and you can always go beyond that. Like sometimes I realize that I have, I'm like sitting there for like 1.5 hours or for more number of time.
So for the Visharat Purna, you will have a written exam.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you will be giving your last exam, and obviously now it will be in a way that your journey in this exam phase will end. So what is one valuable lesson that you have learned from your guru, or she has taught you, or that you have picked up from her, that you are going to carry it forward for the rest of your life, or when you are going to perform, or something that has changed you?
So I think it's just being patient, being very consistent with riyaz, because that is what is going to pay off in the long run. You may not realize its benefits immediately or in the short run, but over the years I have realized that I have actually grown as an artist, or I have been better than what I was, and that is, I think, solely because of practicing and doing riyaz. And as I said earlier, that because of examinations, you are held by that benchmark or by that standard. You cannot just violate the rules, or you cannot be mediocre. You need to perform your best.
Yes.
So, yeah, not being able to give exams later I have mixed feelings about it. But again, you can explore other things which are not part of your exam curriculum. That is one benefit or one advantage. Because the levels that we have in classical music, each level has a fixed syllabus with fixed number of rags, and you only get to learn those rags. But then when you move beyond the exam syllabus, you realize that there are so many more things or more options that you can explore, that you can learn, you can practice, perform. So I'm really looking forward to that as well.
So going forward, do you think in the near future, do you have something planned where, okay, maybe obviously with an accomplished lawyer, do you want to become or sort of continue having concerts as a Hindustani vocalist, or is it just going to stay at that phase, or do you want to take it to the stage in that sense?
I am not yet sure. I'll see how it
plays
unfolds.
out.
I'll go along with the flow. But right now, I think my focus is on acing the upcoming exam, and I think only time will tell.
Yeah. So one thing with the classical arts is that a lot of times scholarships are given, even with your board exams, few percentages are given. So do you think something like that will help children, the young children, in a way get motivated towards classical music?
I think yes, to some extent, although I don't think that alone will suffice.
Yeah.
Because even with scholarships, you can only use these scholarships towards a certain area. Like you can only buy instruments, or you can only pay your tuition fees out of these scholarships. So there are limitations to it. I can't use scholarship money for elsewhere. With percentages, yes, maybe school students might be interested in taking up a classical art form so that they can get that extra 1 or 2% in their boards. But again, I feel people shouldn't just think about percentages. People should just explore, and if they really enjoy, they should take up the art form. Because if you're thinking that classical art form karke I will get that 1 or 2% extra, I think that is very narrow. Like you're thinking very narrowly, and you shouldn't do it just for the sake of getting marks.
And also, when you talk about classical
Also,
arts,
you need a lot of dedicated
Exactly,
time for this.
classical
So you
arts.
realize that when you are taking this up, you need to give a lot of your time
Yeah.
to it because you need to do justice to the art form. And as I told you, it's a lifelong learning process. So you can't just do it for grace marks in
Yeah,
10th
1%,
or 12th. Or,
yeah. So, bringing it back to a little more generic side or to the state of Hindustani classical or rather classical music in general, do you think classical music in today's world of hip hop and pop or R&B or soul music, do you think somewhere it is getting lost, Indian classical music?
I I think that the newer generations have less exposure to it, and without having any exposure or without having any knowledge about classical art forms, you will not go and attend a classical concert.
Yeah.
You might attend a pop music concert, a Bollywood or a Punjabi pop, K-pop, I
Yeah.
don't know, whatever music concert. There's no harm in doing that, but I think without any exposure or without any basic understanding of classical art forms, you won't be motivated to attend classical music
Yeah.
concert. That is also because you require, in order to understand classical music, you need to have exposure to it. You need to have some basic knowledge or some basic idea about what exactly is Hindustani classical music, what is a rag, what is a tal, what do you mean by khyal. And I have explained these concepts in an article
Yeah.
in the Rasa magazine, which is showcased
Yeah.
in front of you. So I feel without having that awareness or knowledge, it is difficult to comprehend classical art forms. And that is true of classical music or dance, and which I myself have faced these problems initially. But after you have sufficient exposure, or if sufficient opportunities are created where the youth is actually exposed, then I think there will be more awareness, there will be more demand for this field, and it might also gain popularity. It might become the mainstream. So
But it also can happen that suppose someone is taken by their friend to a classical music concert and they have no idea, and it can happen by the end of the concert they have fallen in love with it. So that can also
right.
happen.
Yeah, that can also happen. But in my experience, many of my friends find it very boring or repetitive, or
They don't
it's very
understand.
slow. And I think that happens because first of all you are accustomed to popular music, and second, only once you understand how classical music works will you truly be able to appreciate its beauty.
Yeah.
So that is why I said that you need to have some basic
Some
understanding about the framework.
So do you think schools and colleges should start initiatives like we used to have music lectures and music lessons? So do you think somewhere classical music should also be introduced, at least in a very basic way, that somewhere it does sow the seed in that child's heart,
Right.
that it will go forward?
I believe that should be the case, school, and with classical art forms, it is, I think, better to introduce it to students at a younger age, than maybe in someone's 20s or 30s. I mean, you can take up any art form even in the later years of your life, but the earlier you introduce it, the greater impression, the greater influence it can have on young minds. So school is a very good place. I think you can have exposure to all kinds of music during that one music period, and it's a nice thing if they
Schools
actually,
take up,
if you have a basic idea
Yeah.
in your school years.
So when we talk about classical music, as you said, if the youth actually starts appreciating classical music more, there'll be more demand for it. So do you think classical music today, or what if you can, about Hindustani classical music or in general classical music, do you think it is facing a marketing problem or a music problem?
I think it's more of a music problem than a marketing problem, because social media has made marketing so easy.
Yeah.
Now you have, initially we didn't have those many means to market or advertise something, but now with Instagram, with Facebook, with so many social media platforms, it's so easy to spread the word, to mass communicate. You necessarily don't need to pay for advertisements in newspapers or
Yeah,
televisions
television.
anymore. You can have an Instagram account, a YouTube handle, and you can publicize your work. So it is very easy to market. As I said, I think the music problem is more because people are not aware,
Aware.
and people lack the basic understanding of these art forms.
Yeah.
So
And but also, that being said, I think I'd written in one of the articles as well that audiences do show up. There are a lot of audiences
Right.
do show up for. I think it's somewhere the youth is at a smaller level. It is obviously the millennials and a little of the older generation, but I will feel audiences do show up for classical art. So my coming to my second question from that, obviously you mentioned Instagram and marketing. So today short form content platforms has changed everything, and obviously with music you need to really put yourself out there. It's very easy to post. You have a program coming up. So do you think these platforms have affected classical music in a positive, negative way, and also how people view classical music?
yeah, so I think overall our attention span has reduced because
Yeah.
of the short form content. Like Instagram reels are what, barely, not even a minute, less than a minute, 30 seconds is what reels are today. And classical music, as I said, is something which is very vast, it is very elaborate. One rag can be performed for like an hour or so. So it's, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it definitely affects your concentration, your attention span. So you really need to be interested in order to, sit through the whole concert and listen patiently and appreciate the entire raga. The good side about it is that someone who has no clue about classical music can also go on Instagram and can watch a 30 seconds reel and be interested to watch further. So that 30-second reel or that 1 minute reel can, it can attract many new listeners towards classical music. Whoever is interested, by that one small clip, which can have a very long lasting impact on you. And then you can go back and revisit and you can dive further into the world of classical music. So it has its goods and bads.
So when this is obviously about the audiences. So when you talk about the singers, the vocalists, do you think they should also adapt to these platforms? Now, if you take an example of Dr. Jayanti Kumre, she had started the Kapo Carnatic series, where obviously it was in a way to explain Carnatic music to an audience that does not know about it, where she was doing a lot of relatable music and showing it through the veena. So obviously she had to adapt to Instagram and to put out those videos. So do you think somewhere musicians should also take up that initiative and come up with these ideas to make it more accessible, because social media goes beyond borders and it can reach anyone at any platform in any corner.
Right. So I agree with what you're saying, completely agreed. You have, as you mentioned, Dr. Jayanti Kumresh. There's also Vox Guru.
Yes,
for
wonderful
Carnatic
platform.
Music,
Yeah.
yes, who explains what Carnatic music
Yeah.
is, what are the different kinds of ragas, gamakas,
Yeah, wonderful
alankarams,
videos.
etc. So I feel there is that burden on artists also to make it more accessible. And another way that artists do that is by also having semi-classical pieces in their performances. So instead of just having a proper ragdari presentation, someone might include a Kabir bhajan, a Meera bhajan, thumris, tappas, ghazals.
Yeah.
So all these semi-classical or folk music styles also help the audiences to have a better understanding, and basically you feel that you're a step closer towards understanding classical music.
Yeah.
Because semi-classical music, I believe, acts like a bridge. Acts like a platform which is like bridging the two sides of the music world.
sides.
So
when you talk about, obviously, as you correctly mentioned, everyone, there should be an involvement that should happen. So when you talk about experimentation, which is something that should, semi-classical can also come under that. obviously with the current example of Ananya Pandey's dance which has come up, obviously there is some sort of fusion that has come in. So what are your opinions on, should there be an experimentation and fusion between classical and hip hop or modern music?
I think it is inevitable.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, we can have fusion between so many different cultures. You
Yeah.
can have a fusion between, Bollywood and K-pop, between classical music and jazz, between, Kathak and breakdancing.
Break.
So, and as you rightly mentioned, Ananya Pandey's fusion is something that has received mixed reviews. It ultimately is a very subjective opinion.
Yes.
It depends. If you ask classical musicians or classical artists, it will be different. If you ask how it is perceived by general audiences, their opinion might
Yeah.
bring a fresh take. But I think fusion is something, again, see, through mediums like fusion, semi-classical, those 30-second reels, it is ultimately helping classical music to
yes.
be popular, like to, or have at least audiences have some exposure, some idea because of fusion, because of posting reels, because of performing semi-classical music. Audiences have better exposure to classical music.
Yeah.
So if it is helping the field, why not?
Why not?
Also, I feel in fusion, or even in Bollywood music, you need to duly acknowledge the role that classical music has played. Many a times, Bollywood music appropriates classical music,
Yeah.
but no one realizes that this is classical music. So that acknowledgement is also so important for audiences to realize that, oh, this is classical music.
Yeah, definitely.
So I feel that also is something that
should happen.
We can look further into.
So my question was, now when fusion does happen, as you said, there should be acknowledgement, there should be respect for the classical tradition. So when you do the fusion, there should obviously be a line drawn with how much you can fuse together and
Correct.
mix together. So where do you think that should happen? Or like, obviously it will be subjective, but there should be a common gray area that, okay, I should respect this, they
Right.
should respect this, the mutual give and take.
I mean, there is, it's such a gray area. You
Yeah.
can never draw a line,
Line.
in the sand. Okay, this is the point
Yeah.
up till which, fusion is permitted. Fusion should be looked, you cannot compare, you shouldn't hold fusion to the thresholds of classical music. You cannot compare it to that of classical music. But again, you should make sure that in the process of fusing the two art forms, you are not degrading or insulting or disrespecting anyone.
Anyone, yes.
So as long as that doesn't happen, I feel
Yeah.
fusion is fine.
So, along the same lines, obviously, it is very important to preserve the traditional aspects of classical music, but at the same time, we are also, you want to appeal to the modern audiences with fusion. So, how do you think in the near future it's going to be? Is it possible to preserve the tradition? Truly, as you said, fusion is inevitable, it is going to happen, but the tradition should also be respected, it should be passed on, newer generation should learn it. So do you think somewhere the preservation should happen, and how should it attract the modern audiences? Because obviously you are fusing, you are using experimentation to gain modern audiences only, but without doing all of this, to how to attract it to the traditional side?
See, this is a huge project.
Yes.
You cannot put the burden of making classical music popular on just the artist, or only on the audiences, or only on the state, like, government or the cultural ministry. Like, it requires, multiple stakeholders to do their part.
Yes.
And it can start by educating people at a young age through primary education, school education,
Yes.
through social media campaigns, by popularizing, advertising, marketing it on social media. Again, then by artists performing fusion or semi-classical music, if they can attract and they can create a liking towards classical music. So it requires even the audiences to go out there and give due respect
Yes.
to these art forms. So it's not like a certain class of people can single-handedly do this, and it requires.
It's a joint effort.
Yeah, it's a joint venture. You
Yeah.
need multiple people to come together and.
Yeah.
You know,
So when you talk about audiences, as you say, if someone is listening to music, classical music or Hindustani classical music for the first time, or if someone does know a little bit about it, what do you think are some misconceptions that are there that people might have about classical music, or some misunderstandings?
I feel people think it is very boring, and what I have heard a lot of times is neem atheism. So I feel that happens because you're not aware of what is going on, or the untrained ear finds it very repetitive. We have something called as vistar, or alap gayan, alapi जिसको हम कहते हैं, and that basically means you are expanding on the rag, you are expanding on the khyal.
Yeah.
Khyal is the song or the composition in classical music, and through alaps, bol tans, you are expanding on that particular khyal,
Yeah.
or on the rag. So I feel that is a misconception, because it is very nuanced also. There are a lot of nuances in these alaps, bol alaps. No two alaps are the same. No two tanas are the same. It may sound similar because it is in the same rag, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And it may sound repetitive. It requires patience. It requires a lot of understanding
And appreciation.
Yes. So I think that is a misconception, and I think people, you don't need to just straight away dive into a half an hour YouTube video in order to understand. Maybe start by a shorter YouTube video. Maybe start by a 5-minute or even a 3-minute YouTube video or a Spotify khyal. And from there, maybe people can, take it up further if they like.
So, one thing that I wanted to ask, you had mentioned in the article that you had written as well, Hindustani classical music faced invasion, because it comes from the northern side, while Carnatic music does retain a lot of its original structure.
Correct.
So, where do you see those Persian influences in, what can you make of, okay, this is before the invasion, or this is before the Persian influence, or this is, ghazals obviously must have come from the Persian influence.
So you have ghazals, you have qawwalis, which is another very, then you have Sufi and Bhakti music,
yes,
which also comes during the medieval era when you have these invasions, when India is interacting with foreign powers. The first stark difference that you will notice is the language. The kritis or the padams in South Indian, in Carnatic classical music are in any of the South Indian languages or in Sanskrit. But when it comes to North India, the khyals or the drupads, dhamars, thumris, ghazals, they are in different dialects of Hindi. So like the Braj Bhasha, Khadi, and these dialects of Hindi which came up in the medieval era, that is one difference. Another difference is Carnatic music. If you trace back in Indian classical music to its roots, the origins lie in the Samaveda.
Yes.
And Indian classical music, or music at that time, was used to perform rites, yagyas, ceremonies. So it was very religious in nature. It was considered very sacred. And you look at South Indian classical music, it retains that devotional aspect. Not to say that North Indian music doesn't have any, but if you look at the content of the bandishes, North Indian music is describing, devotion. So you have Radha Krishna, you have Allah bandishes, you have bandishes on human relations as well, not just devotional music. So for example, Saas Nanad.
Okay.
Then you have music on seasons. Like Miya Mallar is a rag which is on the monsoon season. So you have music like, for example, Barkha Rutu Jhara Lagi. So
even one that comes to my mind is Rag Durga.
Or Rag Durga is again another rag which is very devotional, which is evoking the bhakti ras. You have music on Shringar ras, on love between between spouses. You have music on Vasant Ritu as well, just like the monsoon. So I feel with Hindustani music, the content also is not limited to devotion, but it is also to, your everyday affairs, like
Yes.
festivals like Diwali, Guru Purnima, Holi. These festivals are also described through Hindustani music. So I feel the language as well as the content differs. Likewise, the form of presentation is also different. So the third difference is that Hindustani music has a lot of scope for artistic improvisation. Or what I called Vistar earlier, it is called improvisation, wherein I can take a rag and I can decide to make my own alaps, my own bol alaps, bol tans, and I can just keep
Doing
exploring
that.
and expanding the rag. However, I don't think Carnatic music allows for that kind of expansion. I think there is some improvisation. However, the improvisation is very limited in its scope, while Hindustani music gives a lot of artistic freedom. The fourth difference is the instruments, which is again a visible difference. So in Hindustani music, you might see instruments like the sarangi, santoor, tabla, of course, as the percussion instrument. Harmonium is there, sitar, while you can find equivalents of these in Carnatic music. For example, sarangi and violin sound very similar. Both are stringed instruments. Or for that matter, for the sitar you have the veena, Saraswati veena.
Yes.
So you have these parallels between the two, tabla versus the mridangam.
Yes.
So that is another visible difference which audiences can notice when you can see a performance on the stage.
So, coming back to presenting a concert or singing, what do you think is the difference between singing a song and presenting a rag?
So, the main difference, as I have been saying since the start of this interview, is that classical music is rule-based music.
Yeah.
It is heavily rule-based. There are a lot of rules that you need to be careful about. If you change one note, it might change the entire rag and you might go off track. So that is one difference. And second, the presentation style is different. If you have seen classical music, it is mainly the vocalist as well as the instrumentalists are sitting on a stage. It's not like pop music where people are standing or where you have you can dance along with while you're singing. This is more of you're sitting, you're in a meditative kind of a stance, and you are being accompanied by the tabla, by the tanpura players, by any other instrumentalists. So the style of presentation also differs from just an ordinary normal song.
Coming back to the Hindustani Carnatic music difference that you mentioned, one thing that just came to my mind, I was in one of the videos from Vox Gurus, I think on YouTube, she had mentioned that when you learn Hindustani music, if you have a rag, you'll have the aro, avro, the pakad, then you'll have a bandish, then you'll have the ala. So it is very systematic in a way. Then you have the lakshangeet, then you have the tarana. So in a way, you are presented an entire raga with a folder like take this. While in Carnatic, it is quite opposite. You are given direct compositions, and from that you have to decode. In a way, that was what she mentioned. So do you think that learning Hindustani classical music in a way that it is so structurally presented and given, that is quite easy making it sing it forward?
I feel even though it sounds on paper at least, or while as you said it sounds very structural. Although if you look at actual concerts, it is not that structured per se. So, and again, it's not compulsory that everything must proceed in a particular manner, or you need to check these boxes, tick these boxes before moving on to the next part. It doesn't go that way. So it's not that structured when it comes to the presentation part of it. But yes, I feel once you have understand the swars of a raga through its aro, avro, pakad, through the rag vistar, once you understand the swars, the chalan of the rag, the important phrases that the raga uses, then it becomes easier for you to learn bandishes, khyals, drupas, taranas, lakshangeets, any of the compositions that are there. That is at least what I believe. I feel the other way around also might be a good approach. I have personally, that is not how it goes in Hindustani music at least. But I think Carnatic music also offers a very unique approach towards how classical music can be learned.
So coming back to the classical roots, obviously, in those days the Guru Shishya Parampara was something that was very traditionally followed. So do you think somewhere it should happen even today, or do you think that because everything is modernized so much that, you know, now if you look at an example that I like to give is in Bengaluru, and there's an Odissi dance school called as Nrityagram. So basically, it's situated offside from Bengaluru, where people they stay there, learn Odissi. So do you think something like that should happen for music, or earlier those days the student would live with the guru, learn from them whole day, and then afterwards perform?
Right. So this change is not just limited to music or dance, but also to formal education.
Yes.
You see, during medieval times or ancient times, even for formal education,
Gurukuls.
we had gurukuls.
Yes.
We had students going and staying at the guru's place, and not just learning, your formal education subjects, but also learning about life.
Yeah.
Learning different household chores, learning everything. And we have seen that change after British and after the modernization of society, wherein we have schools, colleges, universities. We have formal structures for education wherein you attend classes, take lectures, and then come
Go
back
back
home.
home.
So that's a change not just in classical music, but of course, yeah, you can always have that kind of a alternate system of
Yes.
learning. And again, I feel somewhere because of the needs of our current society and because of the social structure or the social fabric that we are in right now, it is difficult to find this kind of a system or to actually see it happening frequently or commonly around us.
So obviously, talking about the Guru Shishya Parampara, it is very important to find the correct guru, because obviously it is the guru who will teach the correct things to the student, make sure that the student goes on the right path. So in all of those factors, how important it is to find the correct guru?
I think this is a two-way street in the sense that any relation, it will work only if both people put in their best
efforts. Yes.
So as a student, I feel you have to be very respectful about your gurus, about the art form. You need to believe in what your guru says. You need to follow their word to the T, because they are a guru for a reason, and you should be differential towards their opinions and their guidance, their advice. And at the same time, I feel the guru also should try not to compromise and should bring out the best from within a student. So I feel once both people, if they are following their duties, respecting each other, it is going to be a wonderful experience.
Yeah. So obviously, in contrast to the Guru Shishya Parampara, with obviously so many modern techniques, you have in-person classes, but something that came up because of COVID was online learning, and now online learning is still prevalent because people can learn from gurus who are not in the same city. So I don't know if you would have gone through online learning for music in those 2 years, but do you think online learning somewhere is beneficial, or it can work out, especially with music and with dance, when you have to start on the same beat? It can happen that 2-3 seconds go here, there, or there could be an internet issue. With such issues, do you think online learning is beneficial for arts, music and dance in a way?
See, technology brings its own boons.
Yes.
And as you rightly said, that you can have a lot of flexibility with online learning.
Yes.
If you're facing space constraints, if you are having some time constraints, if you are in different time zones or in different cities, you can definitely, still have classes through online education. However, of course, the sound quality will be compromised. Maybe you may not, there might be a lag, the video might buffer, and so it might have its own difficulties, when the guru wants to actually correct your mistakes or wants to guide you. But I feel, I have personally experienced this during my Visharad exam preparation.
Okay.
During the COVID years, I learned a lot of things online from my guru. Of course, there are certain limitations to online education in the sense that I feel some aspects or some things are, you can grasp them better when you are in person
Yes.
because of the sound quality, picture quality. Online education, yes, it can be a solution. However, I feel it is complementary to your physical classes.
Yes,
You
yes.
cannot entirely rely online. It's always better to have physical classes because classical music, classical art forms are so nuanced that you need to be in front of your guru. And then, it's a different mahol, it's a different environment when the guru, you're sitting in front of your guru and practicing,
Yes.
and then the guru is
Giving you notes.
giving you guidance, giving
Yeah.
you notes. So I feel that is something that you won't be able to fully experience in online class.
So, coming to some of the last section of the interview, when someone says classical music is for intellectuals or for certain type of people, what are your opinions when people say this?
I mean, it is intellectually stimulating. That is for sure. I mean, it's not just your vocals or, it's not just merely a vocal exercise, but it actively requires you to use your brain,
Yes.
have that peace of mind, have that presence of mind when you're performing. But again, I feel it shouldn't be limited, or there shouldn't be gatekeeping done by making such statements. I feel anyone can take up this art form
Yes.
at any particular age, any class, any section of the society. Whoever is interested in Indian arts, just like, taking up a language, you can take this
Yeah.
up, and you will find it intellectually
Stimulating.
maybe once you dive further, delve deeper into this particular.
So, when you talk about ragas in Hindustani music, obviously they have a certain time and they are associated with certain emotions as well.
Right.
And when people say that, okay, that this raga evokes this kind of emotion, do you think it actually does, or it is something that is because people have been saying it, it is something that is culturally passed down, and in a way that we are now believing it because it has been said?
Like a placebo effect.
Yes.
Right. So that's a very interesting question, actually. So it again depends. First of all, yeah, people might be influenced by the opinions that have been passed down
Yes.
for generations and for years together. Secondly, it also depends on your subjective, your mood, your personality. When you are listening to a particular rag, what emotion is it actually evoking?
Yeah.
Or if I'm listening it at sunrise versus if I'm listening it at midnight.
Yeah.
Does it change the way I feel?
Yeah.
And I mean, every person can have completely different answers, and no one is wrong, no one is.
There's no right or
There's no
wrong.
right or wrong.
Yeah.
It is completely subjective, and as long as it's doing good to you, as long as you are enjoying it, as
Yeah.
long as you are having that immersive experience, I feel that is what matters at the end of the day.
Yes.
So, ragas do have, it is, the general perception is that yes, there is a certain fixed mode, but it also depends on how the performer is performing a raga. The time, what actually is the content of the bandish.
Yes.
Is the bandish talking about, the playfulness of Holi, or is it talking about something very deep, some sorrow, or is it talking about some goddess or a god, is it invoking devotion? So the words, the lyrics also, the sahityam will also affect them.
So to come to the last sections, you have been learning since the age of 8. So what motivates you to keep going forward with classical music?
First, the fact that I derive happiness out of it. So, there is nothing that actually is holding me back, or nothing that is demoralizing me, demotivating me to stop pursuing it. It has become such an integral part of my life. I cannot think my life without this art form, without performing it, without singing it for just singing it for myself.
Yes.
So I think just being able to enjoy, being able to perform different ragas, explore different ragas, knowing the fact that there is that the sky is the limit. Like there are endless possibilities. There is lifelong learning in this field. That is what just keeps me going.
Yes. And another question is, should people at least once in their lifetime listen to classical music?
I mean, if you are an Indian, you should definitely.
You should, yes.
I feel there's no harm in giving it a try.
Yeah.
And you can always listen to classical music along with any other kind of music that you are listening. So yeah, I mean, just give it a try and see where it takes you. I feel.
Yes. Where do you see the state of classical music or Hindustani classical music in the next 50 years, or let's say even next 10, 15 years?
I feel, it is going to stay here. It's not going to go anywhere or disappear. Just like our other aspects of a culture, like food, language, religion, fashion, clothing. So many of our traditions, customs have been passed down from generation to generation. So it is, and considering the population aspect to it also. However, I feel Gen Z or maybe the Gen Alpha audiences should also take some interest. Or at least try, to enjoy or give it a try.
So you were in.
So I don't think that it is going to disappear. Or it is just going to.
It is going to stay. Definitely.
Become a thing of past. No, it is a living art form. It's our heritage, and it is going to stay.
Yes. So you were in Jindal's Tadeem Society, Classical Society. So how was that experience for you in those 4 years of being in that society, surrounded by fellow classical musicians, instrument players, dancers as well? So how was that experience for you?
I mean, it was a wonderful experience. I can't compare it to anything else. It's like having a whole orchestra to yourself with so many music players, so many talented dancers, co-vocalists, and I feel that was the first time when I actually had the chance to perform alongside classical dance. So generally you see classical music baithaks or classical dance performances, these take place in isolation.
Yes.
However, with Tadeem, our motive was to have a collaborative effort and to put up a performance where we can have both classical music and classical dance included together, and where we can blend these styles to form a complete whole. And I feel Tadeem has given me that exposure where I have performed for Bharatnatyam dancers, where I have provided live music for Kathak dancers, and it is, it's a one of its kind experience, and I was glad to have that. A home away from home is what we call Tadeem. So I'm glad to have that family on campus. I miss them a lot.
Yes.
And yes, I mean, it has been a blessing in disguise.
So to end this interview, I'd like to ask a few, in a way, rapid fire questions. So what is your favorite raga?
Oh my god. I mean, lately I have liked Nike Kannada.
Okay.
That's at present. However, this keeps changing.
Yes. So, favorite composition that you have performed?
So there is a Bada Khyal in Rag Purya Dhanashri called Abato Rutaman Ai, and I had performed it for my Visharad exam, and I love Rag Purya Dhanashri, and that is why I hold that composition very close to me.
Any favorite classical singer?
There are many. I would say Kaushiki Chakraborty and Rahul Deshpande.
Favorite memory from any exam that you've given for classical music?
Oh, so this is a funny memory actually. I was asked to sing a tarana of one rag, and I started singing the tarana of some other rag. And once I started singing, I realized, oh no, this is the wrong rag that I've sang. So after singing the whole thing, I told the examiner that, sorry, I started singing the wrong one. Do you want me to sing the other one also? But then she was fine with
She's like,
the
okay.
one, with the one I sang.
I cannot end this interview without asking you to sing at least a few lines from any rag, any composition. So I think our viewers will also be wonderfully thrilled because the Hindustani classical music video that we had done, that also received a lot of praise. So obviously everyone who do they do want to hear you sing. So please.
So I'll be singing a Chota Khyal from Rag Durga called Sakhi Mori. This is a paramparik traditional bandish and it's in Jhaptal. Sakhi Mori Roma Jhoma Sakhi Mori Roma Jhoma Bata Garaje Marase Sakhi Mori Roma Jhoma Sakhi.
Thank you so much, Dhruva, for the wonderful interview. I'm so lucky that you said yes, firstly, because obviously once you start working, I know it's going to be very
Yeah,
difficult
it
to
would
catch
have
a
been
hold of
difficult.
you.
No, but I'm so glad we could do this. You know, this is
Yes.
such an amazing platform for me to voice out my opinions
Yes.
and to have
Thank
this
you.
lovely chat with you. So, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.